What's up, everybody? This is CompTIA Study, and we're going to be talking more about Windows versions and the features of these versions. So, what we'll be exploring in particular will be different Windows editions, what features exist in each edition, and when those features are used in real world IT environments. We're going to primarily focus on Windows 10 and 11, since those are the operating systems you'll most commonly support in an IT role. We're also going to talk more about 32-bit versus 64-bit Windows, some core Windows features, and how Windows systems can be upgraded or managed in business environments. Let's talk about Windows editions first. So, Microsoft releases Windows in several editions designed for different environments and use cases. The most basic edition that you're probably using at home right now would be Home Edition. Windows Home is designed for PCs and consumer laptops. It only includes standard features for everyday use like browsing, playing video games, and certain office applications. However, it has several important limitations that matter in a business environment. For example, Windows Home cannot join a domain, does not include group policy management, does not support BitLocker encryption, and cannot host remote desktop connections. Because of these limitations, Home is rarely used in business environments. However, there are certain use cases, or if it's a bring your own device work environment. The next version that you see will be Windows Pro. Windows Pro is the edition most commonly used in business environments and by IT professionals, which we aspire to be. It adds several important features such as domain join, which allows the computer to connect to a corporate network, group policy, which lets administrators manage many computers centrally, BitLocker, which encrypts the entire disk to protect data, remote desktop hosting, which allows the system to be controlled remotely, and Hyper-V, which is Microsoft's built-in virtualization software. Because of these features, Windows Pro is the edition most IT technicians support the most often. The next one we're going to talk about is Windows Enterprise, and this is designed for very large organizations and corporations. It includes everything in Windows Pro, but adds advanced security features as well as management features. Some examples of these features would be Direct Access, App Locker, Credential Guard, and Device Guard. These features allow companies to implement very strict security controls and centralized management across thousands of devices if they so choose. Enterprise editions are typically deployed through volume licensing agreements, which are exclusive deals between a company and Microsoft themselves. And the last version that is touched upon in the A Plus Core 2 would be the education version, which is very similar to Enterprise, but it's designed specifically for schools, universities, and any other sort of academic institution. You'll often see this edition in computer labs at schools, student laptops, and within campus networks. Now that we've covered all the different editions of Windows, we're going to talk a little bit about the difference between 32-bit and 64-bit. Windows can be installed as either a 32-bit operating system or a 64-bit one. The primary difference between these versions is how much memory the system can support. A 32-bit version of Windows can only support a maximum of 4 gigabytes of RAM. And because of this, 32-bit operating systems are only found on older computers or legacy systems. On the contrary, what you find more so today would be a 64-bit system, which can support significantly more memory, often hundreds of gigabytes depending on the edition. Basically, all modern hardware designed today is created with 64-bit Windows in mind. Regardless of that, it's very important to remember that basically all modern applications, operating systems, and hardware are designed primarily for 64-bit environments. And because the hardware is designed with that in mind, basically 100% of computers created today run on 64-bit Windows. However, for the A plus exam, you should keep it in the back of your mind that 64-bit is the modern standard, while 32-bit systems mainly exist for older hardware compatibility. Now, let's move on to the features. The first one of those would be BitLocker. Now, what BitLocker is a full disk encryption feature included, as we said previously, in professional and enterprise editions of Windows. It will encrypt the entire drive so that if a computer is lost or stolen, the data cannot be accessed without proper authentication. You could see why this is important for businesses if they have sensitive data or people's personal information. Of course, they don't want somebody to access that. That's why it's exclusive to professional and enterprise editions. Next, we have remote desktop. This allows a user or technician to connect to and control a computer remotely over the network, and you can imagine how this is useful for IT support and remote administration. And just as a reminder, this is not included in the home edition of Windows. Another very useful feature that is included on Windows is Hyper-V, which, as we said before, is Microsoft's built-in virtualization platform. In essence, what it does is it allows users to create and run virtual machines, which are simulated computers running inside the main system. Now, you might be wondering, why would somebody want to do that? And the reason would be perhaps an IT professional would like to test an operating system, test an application in a legacy or different operating system, or they just need to run multiple environments in one convenient place. And Hyper-V allows technicians to do these things. The next feature we'll talk about is Windows Sandbox. And what that does is provides a temporary isolated environment where you can run software safely. Anything inside the sandbox is deleted when the sandbox is closed, which makes it useful for testing unknown or potentially unsafe programs. Next would be assigned access, which is also known as kiosk mode. And what this does is it locks a device so it can only run one specific application. If you think about a POS system at a restaurant or a store, ticketing machines that you see when you go to an event or a place, public computers and libraries that only want you to access one thing, or certain self-service terminals, this is where you'll see assigned access being used. And for everybody's convenience, I have this chart that goes over the different editions and what features are available on those editions. Feel free to take a screenshot of this and use it when you study. Now, with that out of the way, let's talk a little bit about how you upgrade Windows editions. Windows systems can be upgraded from one edition to another without reinstalling the operating system. For example, a computer running Windows Home can be upgraded to Windows Pro. This upgrade unlocks the features that we talked about that are exclusive to different editions, like BitLocker, Remote Desktop, Hyper-V, Assigned Access, so on and so forth. In business environments, systems running Windows Pro can also be upgraded to Windows Enterprise. However, Enterprise upgrades usually require volume licensing, as we touched upon before, through an organization. The key advantage of Windows upgrades is that they typically preserve installed programs, files, and user settings, so you don't have to go back and redo all of these things again. Now we're going to talk a little bit about feature installation. How do we get these features loaded onto a system? It's important to note some Windows components are not installed by default. While some Windows features are installed by default, some are not, but they can be easily enabled when they're needed. One method of this would be the Windows Features panel. This panel allows you to toggle certain Windows components on or off. Some examples of this would be the Hyper-V, the .NET framework, or a Windows subsystem for Linux. Another method of doing this would be using Settings or Control Panel, which provides graphical tools for managing installed components. This is the method most commonly used by home users and technicians working directly on a system. On the contrary, in enterprise environments, administrators often use PowerShell, which allows features to be installed or managed using scripts and commands, which is helpful when managing many computers at once. Now let's go into a quick review of everything we just talked about. We covered the major Windows editions, including Home, Pro, Enterprise, and Education. We discussed the difference between 32-bit and 64-bit Windows and why 64-bit is the new standard. We reviewed several important Windows features, including BitLocker, Remote Desktop, Hyper-V, Sandbox, and Assigned Access. And we also talked about Windows upgrade paths, how features can be installed or enabled, and the difference between consumer releases and LTSC versions. Every A+ technician is expected to understand these Windows versions and the features associated with them. Keep that in mind when you continue to study. And before I let you guys go, we have a little question for you guys. Which of the following Windows editions can host remote desktop connections and includes BitLocker and Hyper-V? And if you guys were following along, the answer would be B, Windows Pro. This is the edition that has all these things included in it. This is the edition of Windows Pro that includes all these features by default. And before I let you guys go, make sure to make a free account at our website, CompTIAstudy.io, where you can review this material, do practice questions, simulated tests, PBQs for the exam, and more. And do not forget to hit the subscribe button, because this is only lesson 1 of many to come for the A+ Core 2 and many more IT exams. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next video.